Manchester City 2, Aston Villa 1. And when you lose a game so late on, it absolutely stings. So I've got no doubt Aston Villa fans are hurting at the moment. But I kind of feel like Aston Villa did play quite well. And we're going to be breaking down all the goals, looking at where it went wrong. But when two quality teams come up against each other, it's those fine margins that win games of football. That lack of concentration or ability and quality that is the difference making. And I kind of felt like throughout the game, Aston Villa played quite well in large proportions. They kept Manchester City to minimal openings. They had good openings themselves. And they managed the game well out of possession because we all knew Manchester City were going to dominate possession. We all knew it was kind of going to be a similar feel to the game against PSG where they knocked the ball around really well. And it was all about Aston Villa being compact, managing the space and keeping Manchester City at arm's length. But there was just crucial moments where Manchester City just found a way to win that game. And I thought the profiling of Unai Emery, who he selected to start in this game, was massive. I thought the induction of Unai was massive because he'd give you that profile in the middle of the pitch. He'd give you that presence, that domination, that control off the ball in the middle of the pitch. He was breaking up play. He was cutting out passing lanes. He was screening the back line extremely well. And I kind of feel like when Unai Emery brought him off, you lost your way a little bit. You lost that domination. You lost that control in the middle of the pitch. But its decision making in small margins are so defining when two quality teams match up. And Aston Villa, in my opinion, showed Manchester City too much respect. And I honestly thought they were going to do the same thing as what they did against PSG in that second game, make the game into a transitional game. We all know Manchester City have been vulnerable in transition moments, especially against physicality and power. Aston Villa are built on physicality and power, and I really thought they were going to impose themselves on Manchester City in certain moments. And I think they just lacked that little bit of belief, that little bit of ability to take and risk. And I think that's what cost them the game in terms of tactically. The ideas from Unai Emery in terms of player profiling were absolutely correct in my opinion. But the main thing I want to talk about is Marcus Rashford or Ollie Watkins. Don't let the media fool you into thinking this is an issue, because what I love about Unai Emery, he picks players based on who he thinks is going to give him the best opportunity of winning that game of football. He kind of looked at Manchester City as a similar game against PSG where the opposition were going to have the majority of the ball. We're not going to see the ball as much as what we would in a Premier League game against a mid-table side. So I kind of feel like he picks the players based on who's going to give him the best opportunities to fit his tactical plan to win that game. What I love about Unai Emery is he does this because he wants to win the game of football. It's not about the personnel and their names. It's about their profiles and attitude. Last night, he felt that Rashford would offer more in certain situations because when you think about it, Rashford's a little bit more direct. He's got that injection of pace and he's got that ability in one-on-one situations or even two-on-one situations, which we've seen when Aston Villa won the penalty. Without having as much possession, you need somebody that's going to inject that bit of life when you go to attack. So you need that player that has the ability to create an opportunity for himself or create big moments out of half chances. And it almost paid off Aston Villa because they had their moments. And what I'm trying to say is against Newcastle United, Villa seen more of the ball. So they played in a different kind of way. So they had Ollie Watkins moving into space to create space for others to run in behind. Whereas against Manchester City, you want the centre forward to run in behind. And I kind of feel like Marcus Rashford offers you more off the ball in terms of running in behind than Ollie Watkins does. And he's got that ability to peel wide, receive the ball in wide areas, and then thrive in one-on-one situations. I did a tactical review after the Newcastle United match. And if you go and watch that, you'll understand exactly what I mean. Because what he was doing was getting Ollie Watkins in the half spaces, which pulled Fabian Shaw or Dan Burn out of their position. And therefore, they had Yuri Tillman or Morgan Rogers running in behind. Against Manchester City, that's difficult to do because you're defending deeper. So your starting position is far deeper than what it would be against Newcastle United. So the distance the midfielder's got to cover, he hasn't got enough time to get in behind before the ball's either overturned or lost or just the attack fizzles out. So Marcus Rashford has to give you that. He gives you that better than Ollie Watkins, in my opinion. So against City, Villa's midfield were much, much deeper. Therefore, the striker had to be the one using that injection of pace, using that directness to exploit channels and space in behind. Now, one thing that last night did tell you is UEFA Champions League might not be in Aston Villa's hands at the moment, but over the next 5 years, you're not always going to qualify for Champions League football. There's going to be times when Newcastle miss out, Chelsea miss out, Aston Villa miss out. I'm going to throw Forest in there as well if they can stay up there and compete. But what last night showed you is Aston Villa's success over the past 2 seasons is not just a flash in the pan. They're here to compete. Now, one thing fans need to understand is you're not going to qualify for Champions League every single year because there's only 4 positions and there's 6 teams wanting it. So there's going to be 2 teams that miss out every year. Sometimes it'll be Newcastle. Sometimes it'll be Aston Villa. Sometimes it might even be Man City if they don't get their recruitment right. Well, who else can I think of? Tottenham aren't going to get any worse, but I can't see them challenging. And Manchester United aren't going to get any worse, but I can't see them challenging. But there is multiple teams competing for 4 positions. So just if you miss out on Champions League this season, don't worry about it because you've got a big opportunity of getting into it next season. Now, I wanted to start by having a look in the average positioning because it's not too dissimilar from Newcastle's game where everyone was a bit more compact in Newcastle's game because, like I mentioned earlier, they wanted to compact the midfield to have midfield runners running off Ollie Watkins rather than Rashford running in behind. And as you can see, they're a lot more compact against Newcastle United than they were against Manchester City. That's because they weren't allowed to express themselves once they had the ball and they weren't allowed to set up patterns of play in order to break down the opposition's defence. It was almost playing on instincts against Manchester City. Against Newcastle United, it was more about setting up patterns of play and really forcing Newcastle into mistakes, whereas against Manchester City, it was all done off the cuff, in instincts and trying to break down and really pin Manchester City backwards. So I think the way Emery set up was actually correct. I would have done exactly the same, but I kind of feel like he lost it with these substitutions that we're going to be touching on later. But I wanted to highlight Amadou Onana because I thought he was Aston Villa's most important player. I thought Youri Tielemans played well. I thought Jacob Ramsey played quite well. I thought Rashford was brilliant. I think he gave Diaz a run around. But I think Amadou Onana, just look at his heat map, just sitting in front of that back four, and it meant Manchester City were just recycling the ball just in front of Aston Villa's defence. They're pretty much defending with a 4-5-1. Youri Tielemans was coming back in the midfield and they're set up in a 4-5-1. And I kind of feel like for the majority of the game, they were comfortable out of possession. And that's one of the hardest things to do. And that obviously comes from coaching the players into this setup. But I kind of feel like Amadou Onana, you miss something once he come off the pitch. But what I'm talking about is getting players close to each other but having runners off the ball, and that's exactly what Aston Villa tried to do with Marcus Rashford. This was literally the opening 10 seconds of the game, very much like the average heat position. You can see the positions of the players here. You've got Morgan Rogers tucking in, you've got Jacob Ramsey tucking in, you've got Onana and Tielemans squeezing up, and you've got Rashford centrally. And they do this because they want to win the first ball, they want to win the second ball, and they want to win the third ball, because once you win that second and third ball, this is what happens. You've got Marcus Rashford on the blind side of Ruben Diaz. Ruben Diaz has got no idea where he is. So if you win the second ball, if you can win that third ball, which is exactly what Youri Tielemans does, you're in this position. This is where Marcus Rashford hits the post. So Unai Emery's tactical plan was envisioned from the first minute of the game. And this is exactly what happened. This is what he wanted from his players throughout the 90 minutes. Marcus Rashford hovering on the last man in defence and trying to get him behind. And I think Rashford is better in one-on-one situations than Ollie Watkins, and that's why I feel like he picked Rashford over Ollie Watkins in games where he doesn't dominate possession. This is exactly why, because Rashford gets into this opportunity, he pins up Diaz, moves it onto his left foot, and then he hits a post. So unlucky. If he scores there, it's a complete different game. The crowd start getting on the back of Manchester City players. They won't be as confident. They'll start getting frustrated because they can't break down Aston Villa. Aston Villa can literally defend the lead and then pick their moments to attack. And that would have been an ideal situation for Aston Villa to be in. But instead, it is Manchester City that take the lead. And it comes from this situation. Now, I kind of feel like this can be avoided by two things can happen to avoid this goal. I think Marmoush is really clever here. Just going out, finding the space. I don't want to get involved in the play. I just want to be an outlet for Manchester City. That's exactly what happens. Now, there's two situations here. Matty Cash, there's got to be a lot of communication. I kind of feel like the decision-making from Aston Villa let them down. He that passes on Gundogan, who's trying to get him behind there to Konza. Hugo Morgan, we've got Pau Torres, who's free because Jacob Ramsey's went into the back four and created a back five. So we've got the extra man. We've got Pau Torres, who can mark the space. Konza, you mark Gundogan. I'm going to go and say to Marmoush. Now, another situation that can happen. Look at Morgan Rogers. He's looking at Marmoush. He's looking at Marmoush with his hand in the air. Morgan Rogers has to bust a gut to get back into position there. He doesn't. He's lackluster. I don't want to say he's lazy because I'm a big fan of Morgan Rogers. He needs to get back in there because he can see Matty Cash is occupied with Gundogan. So you can either do two things. You pull Morgan Rogers back into Mark Marmoush, or you move on Gundogan to Konza and tell Matty Cash to go wider, Mark Marmoush. But I kind of do feel like Matty Cash's body position is all wrong here. And then Marmoush picks up the ball, he stands up Matty Cash, moves it onto his left foot, and then they get into this situation. And again, I kind of feel like Pau Torres' position is good. Amadou Nana is good. If I'm a manager looking at, I'm kind of thinking, okay, we're here. We're in the best positions to defend this. It comes out, takes a little deflection off Konza, comes into this situation, and can you blame Emi Martinez? What Emi Martinez needs to do here, I'm not a goalkeeper myself, but basic goalkeeping is push the ball out of the way, push the ball towards a goal, corner flag. What he does though is parries the ball, and he's so unlucky because it hits his foot and then goes backwards. That ball doesn't hit his foot, he's parried it out back to play, and then Villa probably blocked the next shot. But because he's parried it down, it hits his left foot, it goes back into the goal. So the backspin off his left foot brings it back into the goal. It's so unlucky from Emi Martinez. But if I'm speaking to him after this game and showing him this clip, can you push that ball outwards instead of pushing it back towards into the danger area, which what he was planning on doing, but it hit his left foot and went back into the goal? Can you parry that away from goal? That's what he'll be getting told. But Emi Martinez will know that. He'll know he's got to do better in that situation, in my opinion. Now, for Aston Villa's goal, it is exactly why Unai Emery preferred Marcus Rashford in this game over Ollie Watkins for these scenarios, because Marcus Rashford has that ability to modulate his speed, and he poses a bigger threat in behind, pace-wise and directness than Ollie Watkins. So it means Manchester City are wary of him and need to double up on him. Now, this is exactly what Unai Emery wanted when he got on the ball and wanted to attack, because look at the bodies moving forward. Marcus Rashford's ability to keep a hold of the ball but also attract attention towards him and curve his run outside is allowed Aston Villa to get bodies forward into the box. Now, Marcus Rashford has the quality and the fearness to take on his two opponents, and I actually think even if Jacob Ramsey is not there, Marcus Rashford gets to that ball in front ahead of any other Manchester City players. So he's got that ability to bring others into play, allow others to get up to speed of the play, get up to the game, because he's got that threat in behind that was causing Manchester City so many problems. So you could literally see what Unai Emery was trying to do once Aston Villa got the ball, and Marcus Rashford played a huge part in that. So again, don't let the media fool you into thinking Rashford or Ollie Watkins. You don't just need one striker at a club, you need two for different games and different scenarios. Profiles create partnerships, which also win you games of football, and that's what football is all about. Yes, you can say we need to be loyal to Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins started against Newcastle United, but in this scenario, this is exactly why Marcus Rashford was favoured over Ollie Watkins, because he can do this, and then Jacob Ramsey nicks the ball ahead of Ruben Diaz, who was quite flustered in this moment. He tries to lunge in. Aston Villa win a penalty. Marcus Rashford dispatches the penalty. And then you're thinking, can Villa kick on from here? We're defending well. We've done quite well against Manchester City, although we have allowed them to have the ball. We've picked our moments to go forward. But again, having the bravery to allow bodies forward is exactly what I love about Aston Villa and Unai Emery. But again, a very well tactically set out plan from Unai Emery. Now, this is an image where Manchester City didn't even score from, but I wanted to highlight it because I kind of feel like this was showing signs that gaps were appearing. And this is what I mean, where McAtee got in behind Matty Cash, playing him on side, so the line wasn't straight for Aston Villa. McAtee put it wide of the post, but in this scenario, McAtee should not be getting to that ball ahead of 4 Aston Villa players. Now, this is what I mean, where gaps were starting to appear. The lack of concentration, the lack of decision making was completely wrong, because you've got McAtee moving through the lines of Aston Villa's defence, And I kind of feel like when I seen this, I thought, gaps are starting to appear. We need to be a little bit more compact. And then I seen Amadou Onana come off the pitch, and I thought Aston Villa might lose a bit of bite here. And that's exactly what happened. So this is a bird's eye view of Manchester City's winner. And it was a goal that was so avoidable. And that's a frustrating thing, because two things can happen here. Aston Villa were not going to a man-to-man press because they wanted to mark out the space and didn't leave any stone unturned in terms of Manchester City attacking space. So Donnell Malen needs to drop 5 yards deeper, and that pass to Doku gets cut out. But if he does make that pass to Doku, then he can double up as a 2v1 with Disasi, and Disasi doesn't get caught out. Now, I used to say this when he was at Chelsea: please don't play Disasi right back. Go and look over my X account. I've said it for a couple of years now. Disasi cannot play right back. I even made a video when he first joined Aston Villa, and I said Disasi could be a good signing in terms of box defending because he's physical, he can put his body on the line. When it comes to isolating him in one-on-one situations, he is off. That's the brute honesty of it. He's not comfortable in wide areas. Now, Donnell Malen needs to be further back, and then you've got Ollie Watkins, who I think that's Morgan Rogers there. He can apply the pressure, and then what Manchester City do in this instance is recycle possession the other way. That should have happened. Now, Unai Emery will be pulling his hair out there. But if we go out with this image, look at Unai Emery here. He's starting to see the gaps in the space. You can just see him off the screen, absolutely screaming to his players, because he knows that lack of concentration might cost them. And that's exactly what happened here, because Doku stands up Disasi. Disasi, this is the moment he sells himself. He's static, he's square on, and he's not very agile in itself. So he needs to give him an advantage by being a little bit more side on. He's completely sold himself here, because all Doku has to do, he doesn't even need to inject a bit of trickery, just push and drive, push the ball past him, he drives past him, and then Disasi has to desperately try and win the ball. And then once he does this, he's out of the picture. This is the moment where you need to bring him down. Your last minute in a game of football, you have to take one for the team. Take a red card if you have to. You have to bring him down there. Just drag him to the floor. That's what I'll be telling him if I was his manager. In this situation, he's done you. He's got the beating of you. Nobody's catching Jeremy Doku in this situation. So once he gets past you, you need to bring him down. Because once he gets into this situation, then I don't know what to tell you, because he shouldn't even have been allowed to get in this situation. But keep your eye on Pau Torres, because the lack of communication between Emi Martinez and Pau Torres to take ownership of this situation drove me crazy. Because look, Pau Torres could have easily cleared that ball. He wants to clear it, but he's seen Emi Martinez out the corner of his eye, and he pulls his foot away. And I kind of feel like he's expecting Emi Martinez to get there. Emi Martinez is kind of expecting Pau Torres to get there, and they don't know whether one or the other is going to go for the ball. Take ownership. You're in the last minute of getting a point against Manchester City. Do what you've got to do. Put the ball out for a corner. Now, I know the ball's going at speed, but his footing's wrong, and that means he allows the ball to get past him. And from this scenario, Matty Cash, his positioning goes all wrong. And I often say movement kills in football, because the movement, Matty Cash or Jacob Ramsey, I think that is, needs to be wider. They've got no idea what Nunez is doing there. They've got absolutely no idea Nunez is behind them. They've probably got an idea, but the body shape absolutely stinks. They've got to open the body up, because opening your body up, you've got one eye on the ball and one eye on your man. Matty Cash is caught ball watching in this scenario. So there's 3 situations where you could avoid this goal. First of all, positioning of Donnell Malen in here. Second of all, Disasi, absolutely the wrong decision making to dive in and sell himself. Fourthly, he's got to bring him down here. And fifthly, Pau Torres pulling his leg away. I'm sorry, Aston Villa fans, I don't know what more to say on that, because it hurts. That's the only thing I can say. It absolutely hurts. But you were in that game. You were in that game. There was moments in that game where you could have won that game, and those goals were avoidable. When the team watch those goals back, they'll be shaking their head thinking that's basic stuff. And that's a frustration thing. But look, I'm not a pro footballer, so I can easily sit here and say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do this. But this is what happens after games. The manager breaks down situations, and the team watch the goals back and watch what they did wrong and try and improve on the weaknesses. And that's exactly what I'm doing with you guys. So I'm not saying I'm perfect and I would make those decisions at those certain moments, but I tell you something, I wouldn't dive in like Disasi did. I promise you now I would not. I think I would have a little bit more intelligence just to stand my ground, let Doku have the ball, because if you can stand him up for 5 seconds or 2 seconds, that allows somebody to come across, and then you've got a 2-on-1 situation, and it's even more difficult for Doku to move the ball past you. That's just my opinion, but I want to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you made of that game, what you made of this breakdown. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, good luck for your remainder games. It's out of your hands, but there's plenty more twists and turns in this Champions League race. Let me know your thoughts in below. Don't forget to hit that like button. And until next time, up the Villa.